Three, two, one. Welcome to the Project Egg Show with your host, Ben Gothard.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Today, I am so excited to introduce Steve Werner. How you doing today, Steve?
Hey, what's going on, Ben? It is awesome to be here. Thank you so much for having me on. I am super excited.
Dude, I am excited also, and I think we're both massively excited for this. We both have had a lot of coffee today, so let's rock and roll with this. I want to know, what is your story?
Man, I'll give you the short version.
Wait.
Oh,
I want the long version.
you want the long version? I won't go too long. Grew up, started off, owned a business in college. I was really lucky, worked really hard. I cleaned churches and banks. I don't know how I got into that, but I fell into it in college. Um, Ended up getting really burned out because I was working so much, went and traveled the world for a year, ended up in restaurants in Chicago, which led me to Vail, Colorado. Loved working in restaurants, loved taking care of people, loved making people smile, but really had that itch to do more, to be more, and to like serve people. And I fought it for a long time because if you've ever been to Vail, Colorado, it is absolutely beautiful. When you work for the ski resort, you work 8 months out of the year, you get 4 months off. I could go travel the world. I loved it. But finally that like knocking got louder. So I quit my job, moved to Las Vegas. The one thing that I knew how to do better than anybody else I knew was hold live events, because I'd done it in the restaurant world as a manager. I actually ran high-end events for Vail Resorts. So anything from like 20 CEO style people up to the largest event we did was 5,000 CEOs. So they were all C-suite events at the top of the mountain in like the nicest ballroom you've ever seen. So yeah, moved to Las Vegas, spent 20K, fell flat on my face. Yeah, I went down to Treasure Island. I was like, I got this. This is no big deal. I rented the most expensive room, the biggest thing they had. Spent $20,000 in marketing, Facebook ads, print media. I did webinars. I did radio. I did everything. The last $400 I actually spent on sign spinners for the side of Las Vegas, because I was like, I've got to get people into this event. I had 18 speakers booked, and none of it. That was 2014. Moved into a friend's utility room. Good friend in Las Vegas was like, look, I know you can do this. And she believed in me more than I believed in myself. Have you ever had somebody that did that for you?
Yes, and I'm very grateful.
Right? Like, she was like, look, I don't care what you got to do. You can stay in my utility room. Like, I'll buy you some, ramen noodles, and you can hang out for a little bit. And I decided, I was down at the library. We live next door to the library, and I found a book by Dan Kennedy. If you guys know Dan Kennedy, it was called Butts and Seats. And I still to this day don't know how it got in the library. The book sells for about $4.97 on their website. Somebody must have donated it. But it was all about events and filling events. I was like, you know what? I'm going to try what this book says. I took my last credit card, which had, at the time, it had $5,000 on it. I went back to Treasure Island. They required a $2,500 down payment, which they said they wouldn't refund because we had the previous experience. But I was able to sell it out. I sold it out in 6 weeks, 150 people. And like, I thought I was like the king. Like, I was like, man, this is awesome. I held this event. I sold it out. I'm doing great. So I took a little bit of money. I made about $8,000 on the event, which made me feel amazing because I just lost, over 20. And I went to a Dan Kennedy seminar, and he called me an idiot. Do you know Dan Kennedy?
Not personally, but I know of him.
You know who? So crotchety old guy, marketing genius. Just picture like bad grandpa and like king marketer smushed together. That's what you end up with in Dan Kennedy. Yeah, he was doing a round table, and I thought I was the dude. I was like, man, let me tell you about this event that I held. It was amazing. It's all thanks to your book. And he was like, dude, he like literally looked at me, and he was like, are you done? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, you're an idiot. I was like, why? Like, I'm just like, really, like, this is my hero. And he was like, you got to sell them something. Why didn't you speak? Why didn't you sell them something? I was like, well, what am I going to sell them? What do I speak about? And he was like, I have a whole product table over there. Just go pick something. It's all for dentists, chiropractors, anyone. So the next event that I held, I sold some Dan Kennedy products. I took one of the programs that he had was how to speak. I took that. Then I learned some Jay Abraham stuff. Then I got into Frank Kern. I'm a student of history. I love learning. I love studying. So I went through all the direct copy guys from Ogilvy all the way on up. I read, in the last 6 years, I've read over 1,000 books on marketing and business. Really dug into that stuff. So started holding more events. To this date, I've held 46 events, all of them profitable except for that first one. I have helped more than, I think it's 18 people now that we're at hold their own live event. All of them have been profitable. Really, really passionate about live events. I like to say, people nowadays want to do everything online. I'm the exact opposite. I want to do things face to face as much as possible. Really interact with people. I just feel there's so much more value in it. So love live events. No one ever cries on a webinar, right? But you go to a live event and it's waterworks if they're doing the event well anyway. Like you get a lot more emotion out of people. So
That is such a tweetable line. Nobody ever cries on a webinar.
dude, nobody cries on a webinar, not unless they're drinking.
I've yet to see that. In about 4 or 5 years, I've definitely never seen that. So let's talk about this passion for live events. Clearly, you're passionate about it, because I don't think you would have spent years reading 1,000 books and hosting 46 events and then helping other people host these events and spending 20 grand on your very first one and even be here talking about it today. Clearly you're passionate about it, but why? What about it just tickles your fancy?
So, okay, sure. One, it's a face-to-face thing, right? Like when I was holding the corporate events for Vail and in Chicago.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the
Sorry
fun of
about
doing
that.
things live. This is the fun of doing things live. All right, please continue.
So when I was holding live events, the corporate style live events, I realized that people in the room enjoyed being there. They got to know people. There was a lot of networking. I love to talk. I love to network. And I got to know a lot of those guys. Like these are big CEO. I met the CEO of GoPro. I met the CEO of the Marriott Hotels. I'm trying to think who else. Like I met movie stars. I met rock stars. I met all these people. And like, I really enjoyed that aspect. Then when I went out, I'm really stubborn and I'm competitive, not with other people, but with myself. So failing at that first event, I don't fail. And like, it was like going into the Treasure Island office, right? Like I had talked to these guys and I was like, oh yeah, I used to run events. I used to do what you do. This is going to be awesome. And so like I started spending money on ads and I thought for sure, like I was going to sell this thing out because I thought the event was the hard part and the marketing was the easy part. They're both hard, but I knew how to do the events. That's why I thought it was easy. We all have our genius, which comes really well to us because we've done it, right? And we don't like whatever. Other people are like, that's hard as crap. How do you do that? So I like failing at that first event. If I would have been successful, who knows? I might have just moved on from it and been like, yeah, whatever, this is dumb. But failing at it forced me to really learn about it. And then I was like, then it became a game, right? I was like, okay, how can I do this? And how can I do it better? And after like the second or third event, one, I love speaking. I did drama when I was younger. I loved being on stage. So being on stage was awesome. And it was also, so what I ended up selling after the first two events that I sold Dan Kennedy products. After that, I sold what's known as a VIP day, where I would fly to the customer's office and spend a day or two with them. So these were dentists, chiropractors, med spas, plastic surgeons. Trying to think, I did yoga studios. Like I worked in a lot of different verticals. And I would get to go to their business and sit there and talk with them and learn about their business. But then I could also give them, the whole point of the VIP day was that I gave them 3 powerful things that they could take, use in their business to grow their business. They were all, that's why I started reading so much about like the business world and marketing and sales, so that I could help these people, because a chiropractor, or fill in any business owner, thinks I'm the business owner, I'm great at doing what I do, I don't need to worry about sales or marketing. And they don't understand that people don't buy because of benefits, right? Like they don't care that you have the BFG 85,000 dental machine. They don't care about that at all. They care about, are you going to make me have a good smile? Do I like you? Are you funny? Do you make me not like hate going to the dentist? Okay, I'll go to you. Right. So I got to do that stuff, but I really like, I just got to learn to love events. And then I started getting feedback. You can't see it, but like all over this wall over here are letters that I got from people saying, hey, this event changed my life. And that like really started to affect me. And then I started, the very first person that I helped hold an event came to me and said, you know, I really like, I really want to hold an event, but I'm really nervous about it. I'm really scared. And a lot of people are like, they're introverted. They don't want to be on stage, right? How many people have you met like that?
A lot.
Right. So I worked with her, and I didn't even know what to charge her at the time. I was like, if I was really doing this, I'd be charging you like 50 grand, but whatever, you want to do it. Let's figure it out. Helped her hold an event, and she didn't sell a high priced item at the back of the room. She sold a $200 product. We put about 35 people in a co-working space for her. And she ended up closing like 85% of the room. It made, not only did it make her day monetarily, but it like, you saw something shift in her head, because she was like, I can now affect and change people's lives. And like, we're drama, like we're doing things. And like, she was really excited, and like, she was crying. I'll tell you another story. This is probably my favorite one. This was this year. I had a client who, we were at her event, and she was in the back of the room. Her husband was on stage speaking, and they had never sold from stage before. So they had several hundred people in the room. And she was like, you know, there's a lot of tension. You know, we're doing the stack. Like, you know about events, but for those of you who don't, the way you do a good sales presentation is it's about 60 to 80 minutes of teaching and giving value. And it's about 20 to 30 minutes of a very natural sales progression if you do it right, but it builds tension. The idea is that you open up a gap in knowledge between where the people are and where they want to go. And that's normal. That's why you go to an event. You go to an event to learn. So as that gap opens, tension builds in the room, and you can feel it. If you're doing it right, you can feel it. You can cut it with a knife. So we're at the back table, and she's like, man, there's so much tension. Like, she was like, is this normal? And I told them to expect it, but she was like, I just don't know. Like, people are fidgety. And like, I was like, get ready, because you're about to like have your mind blown. And she's just like, I don't know. She was like, should we like wave at him or something? And about that time, a guy in the front row got up and knocked over a chair, and he started a big table rush. Like, people like literally running to the back of the room. And so it was me and her, and we had 2 other people working. And we just got flooded with people. And at the end of the day, we did just short of $1 million in sales. That was before lunch. And it was like, she broke down crying. Like, I mean, they had a successful business beforehand. I don't know exactly what their financial situation was, but I think they were millionaires before. But they had never seen or experienced anything like that. And for those of you out there listening to this, like, if you've never held an event, if you never spoke on stage, when you get to the end and you're doing the pitch, I want you to think about it. You're looking out over the audience, and like, you have these bright floodlights that are like shining in your face, right? And it's hot. That's if you've been to an event and you're sitting out there and you're like, it's so cold in here. It's because on stage it's 100 degrees. So you're like up there and the lights are in your eyes and you're like, you're looking at the teleprompters and like you're clicking through stuff and you're like, all right, this is the moment. Like they're either going for it or they're not. And like the worst thing is when nobody goes for it, right? Then you're just like, oh man. But if you've practiced and if you've done it correctly and you see people like get up and go, and then you go back there and they're all talking to you, and this is what goes through our heads before all this, right? Nobody's going to buy anything. People are going to think I'm a fraud. People are going to make fun of me. People are going to heckle me. Nobody's going to buy. They're going to hate me. Everybody's going to have these really difficult questions. Throw all that stuff out and realize that people love you the minute you're on stage because you're giving them value. If you're doing your job correctly, you're giving them so much value. And like, part of this is giving a good presentation, being funny, telling some jokes, jumping around, making good faces, like having fun with it. But then you get to the back of the room and people are telling you like, that was amazing. It's like having a couple hundred people all yell positive things at you, like, and tell you how you just changed their lives. It's great. And then you get a good payday and you're like, wow, I'm going to go eat a steak dinner. And like, I just changed the world. And I don't mean any of that to sound egotistical. Like, I think anyone listening to this, anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur, if you're doing it because of you, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You're doing it for all the people that you can help. And that it's like the most, you cannot get that through a computer. Like, I don't care. Like my Stripe alert goes off, a couple times in a day and I'll see some sales come through and that feels good. But that is nothing. That's like 1 out of 10 compared to being on stage, selling something from stage, holding an event, being at the back of the room, all of that stuff. Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's tiring. When you're done, when the event's all done, you want a couple days off. I don't know. That's a really long-winded answer to your question, but that's why I love events.
Well, I guess it's not like you're passionate about it or anything, but but that's awesome, man. And I love talking about things with people who are passionate when we're talking about the things that those passionate people are passionate about. That makes me very, very happy. So thank you for sharing and for
No
giving
worries.
a long answer. What I think of is, it sounds like there's the element of the live event that you're really passionate about, but it also seems like the speaking and the offering the product and actually like doing it successfully is also a passion. So is it the live event? Is it the speaking? Is it the sales? Is it the like, what exactly is it? What's really at the core of it? What really fascinates you so much?
It's changing people's lives is the first thing. I mean, that's like the core. Like, I feel like nothing changes somebody's life. Have you been to a Tony Robbins event?
I have not yet. Keyword being yet.
Do you want to go?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna go.
I have a free ticket for you. No joke. I have a friend who cannot go. It's in Miami, the end of November. If you can go, she's like, find somebody for this ticket. You've got a free ticket.
I'm there.
We'll talk after the live stream. If anyone out there listening to this, if you've been to a Tony Robbins event, like, you've been there from 8 a.m. till 2 a.m. every night, and you're so jazzed, your life, like, you're vibrating. It's like you drank a gazillion cups of coffee and you're just happy and like you're vibrating at a completely different level. Live events have the power to do that. I don't care whether there's 100 people in the audience or 20 people. So something that I think a whole bunch of people, the misconception, if you will, when I started holding events, the first one I tried to do 1,000. The first one that was successful, the next event was for 120 people. I sold it out at 100. 20 extra people came. They told me to oversell it because people wouldn't show up, but I did such a good job marketing. We only had 3 people not show up. Go figure. So after that, though, I started ramping them back up, and I got to about 400. And the feedback was, we want smaller events. We want more time with our speakers. We want our questions answered. We want intimacy. So I got down to the point, I made them smaller and smaller. And I got down to the point that one event I held, I sold out at 5 people, and I sold it at a much higher ticket price. Those people were like, dude, we've got one-on-one time with you. We've got one-on-one time with our other speakers. I've helped people. I helped 2 ladies this year. They're bloggers. They're mommy bloggers. Super sweet ladies. I love them to death. They came to me and they said, we want to hold an event where we teach other moms how to do this and make a couple extra $100 a month. I said, okay, awesome. I'm happy to help you. Here's what we're going to do. We got it. We built the whole thing. Instead of trying to do a big, crazy scaled event, which is what I always tell people not to do. I'm like, start with a small event. We sold 20 tickets. They held it, instead of holding it at a hotel, we held it at a co-working space, which makes it much more affordable for you to hold. You don't have to pay the food and beverage at a hotel. I've paid $250 for a gallon of coffee at a hotel.
That's ridiculous.
They charge a ton of money, and then you get service and gratuity. So first tip, pro tip, don't hold it at a hotel till you're going to hold an event that is more than 50 or 60 people, and don't try to hold that event. Try to hold a 15 to 20 person event. We sold 20 tickets, 18 people showed up. When they did their pitch, they closed 14 out of 18 people, and they walked away with over $150,000 in sales. Like,
that's epic.
Awesome. They also, in complete transparency, they didn't leave the room with that much cash in their bank account because they took payments. They left the room with about 50,000, just over 50,000 in cash. But the thing is that they got in such good rapport with the ladies who came. Those ladies love them, and they love each other. They're like a happy sisterhood now. They just held their second event. They put 14 people in the room, and they closed 13. And they're selling a mastermind where it's a year long. They get private interaction. They get their phone numbers. It's an awesome coaching program. So a lot of big coaching programs that are sold by the gurus, you see a 4 to 6 month churn. These ladies have not had anybody churn, and they've changed it so that the only way that you can get into their program is to come to the live event. Their next event is on the calendar for mid-November, and they've almost sold out of it already. They don't want to do more than 20 people because they love the intimacy. So like, if you're out there listening to this and you're like, maybe a live event is for me, it's totally for you. As long as you have, these are the prerequisites. You have to have a product in mind that you know that you can deliver on. So this isn't for somebody that's maybe just starting out. These ladies had a few sales. They knew how to put together the package. The second thing is, you need a list of, I would say 500, 600 people. You don't need a huge list by any means. I would say 500 people, you can do this. I'm working with somebody right now. Their list is 400 people. Our plan is to put 8 people in the first event. That's what he feels comfortable with. And I think it's going to be great. He's already got some sales, like, it's moving along. The whole thing is awesome. So yeah, that cannot happen online. Like, none of that can happen online. So I love live events because you see the power, you see the connection, and like, those ladies not only got customers, but they got like friends for life, and they got the feeling. I don't know how to explain it. Like, some people, I think everyone who's an entrepreneur, when we sell something to somebody, we're like kind of excited. We're like, woo, I sold my kit, I sold my course. But then you hear like, oh, maybe they didn't go through the course, or, oh, they refunded, or whatever, right? That person like flutters off. When you're seeing somebody live, that like goes up here. You remember it. I don't know. You're like, and you're now attached to that person. If that person buys from you, they're buying a high ticket course that you're going to take them through, which is awesome. So I love all the other stuff too, because it's a game. It's like a dance. When you're in the middle of an event, it's live. You can't go back and refix anything. you're on stage speaking. If you lose your place, like there's a little bit of I don't know what the right word would be. You can't mess it up. So there's a little bit of pressure, but it's a good pressure. It's the closest thing to being a professional athlete that I think I could probably do. And it's probably the best way to explain it. Like you're on a stage in front of people. People are watching you and paying attention. And if you have a bad PowerPoint presentation, like you're not going to have a good time. You're going to fall apart.
I know what you mean exactly by that pressure. It's like when in basketball, there's 3 seconds left and somebody passes you the ball and you are the shooter. Like you have to make it. There is no other alternative. And it's like a nervous energy that's a really strong, powerful, like urge to just be the best version of yourself that you could possibly be. So you can win in that moment.
Yeah, that's exactly. So that's like the speaking part. And then running the event, like you're just at the event. There's energy. If you're doing the event right, people are excited to be there. They're happy. You're changing their lives, and you can literally see it. And you just don't really get that anywhere else. I don't know.
Yeah, it is magical. And like, I'm so curious still, because it seems like what we've distilled it down to is changing people's lives.
Absolutely.
Why is that important to you? Why do you care?
I mean, there are a lot of reasons. I mean, part of it is like I want the world to be a better place, right? Like we all want the world to be something better. I mean, maybe not everybody, but I think entrepreneurs at their core, like that's our drive. And where does that come from? I don't, I guess I look at, there's this theory of we're either at cause or we're at effect. And if we're at cause, that means that the world pushes in on us and things happen. Those are the people who make excuses or don't take action. And all of us are at cause at some points in our life. Like, whatever. I didn't get out of bed this morning. I slept through my alarm. I didn't work out whatever. But then there's effect, and that effect means that we affect things. And I might not be able to control everything that happens to me, but if something happens to me, I can control my response to it. So take that and view the world, right? Like there are people out there, and I've heard this, and some of them are business owners, they're like, I'm here to take what's mine. And if there's a piece of trash on the ground, I'm going to leave it lay there. If there's, it's not my responsibility. And I guess I look at it as it is my responsibility. Like what can I do to leave the world a better place than I found it? What can I do to like have people, I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it either. I mean, I love people saying like, oh my God, you changed my life. Like, I don't think there's anything that I could hear that's better than that. Like that really makes my day. So, but that in order to do that, I have to take responsibility and say, what can I do? What is my gifts? What are my gifts? How can I apply them in a way that makes the world a better place, makes my life better, makes their life better, and is fun? I mean, if it wasn't fun, if it was coding computer stuff, I mean, I probably wouldn't do it. I mean, you look at Elon Musk, I don't know if you've read like his book or studied any of his stuff, but if you look at why he does what he does, he literally, like he went to college and studied batteries and transistors because he knew that that was the way that he could have the greatest impact on the world. Talk about like, I don't think I could do that. Like I would be bored. I wouldn't do all that great. But he was like, you know what? That's what the world needs. I'm going to go figure it out. I'm smarter than everybody else. And then like he lived in an 8x10. It wasn't even a studio. It was an office where his brother would code all night. He would sleep on the couch. Then they would switch places and they had a gym next door to them where they took showers. Like that's dedication to like, I'm going to change the world. Then what did he do? He sold that company. He made whatever. He sold PayPal. I think he made like 600 million. He took all of that and invested it in something else. and almost went broke. Then he SpaceX got Tesla and Solar City and invested all of that, and he's sleeping on a couch and doesn't have an apartment. Like that whole story to me is really inspirational, because I'm not going to sleep on a couch. Like I'm like, I don't know. Let's see. I just made like $3 billion. What do I want to do? I'm still going to be active. I would still help people, but man, he was just like, nope, we're going to send a rocket. We're going to Mars, or I'm going bankrupt. Like, I don't know. That's way off topic, but
Well, it's kind of on topic. We got there logically, but what I'm thinking is, I love that reason of being able to change somebody else's life, make society better, make the world a better place, and getting the recognition and the like, not in a I need it way, but in like a it is just satisfying way of somebody saying, you freaking changed my life. I mean, you made my life better than it was before. And like the idea and the knowledge of the idea that you could, and the knowledge that you did fundamentally change another human being's existence, man, that is freaking powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the point. That is 100% the point. Like coaches, entrepreneurs, influencers, anyone who's out there doing this stuff, I mean, at the end of the day, that's the reason why we're doing it. I mean, sure, we want to sell stuff, we want to make money, we want to live our life, but we also really want to do that stuff, and you can do both. One, like, they're not binary. And that's, I don't know, for me, events like became that. When I started doing it, yeah, I was excited. I was like, ooh, I get to hold events. Like, I like Tony Robbins. This is awesome. But then I was like, once I started doing it, all of it came full circle. And I was like, wow, this is like actually really, really powerful stuff. It's been a pretty wild ride, for sure.
That's awesome.
But led to a lot of interesting conversations. Met a lot of really cool people, and changed a lot of lives. So, wow.
So at this point, after doing all that work and having your ups and downs and finding what seems like a very true purpose of yours, and I still can't get over 1,000 books. That's a lot of books. And I love reading, and I literally keep a list of all the books that I've read, and I'm not there yet, but I'm coming for you, by the way, buddy. But
Cool.
but like, all those things, right? At this stage in your life, what questions do you still have about yourself? What are you working on internally at this moment?
That's a good question. So, I mean, so I'll tell you what I'm working on, and like how I'm dealing with it, because this is like a really honest, like vulnerable question, right? So my big thing now has been, how can I grow this bigger? How can I scale this a little bit without losing the authenticity? So I've been working on putting together a speaking tour. So I live in Vail, Colorado. If you've been to Vail, it's beautiful. I have 31 days until I have to be out of my place, which includes selling a whole bunch of stuff, packing up what I don't want. I don't want to do a storage unit. I'm going to Dallas is the first stop. I'll be there. Then I'm doing Miami, Orlando, Nashville, Austin, Phoenix, San Diego, over the next 6 months. And I've been working on setting up the speaking tour. And this is new to me, because I'm going out and I'm going to other promoters, and I'm like, hey, I want to be on your stage and I want to speak. I've got a lot of stage experience. But it's a whole different world, right? Like it's pushing outside of my comfort zone. The other thing is, like, this is like, it's very hard for me to stay in my lane. People have always said, like, pick what you do, stay in your lane. The more you stay in your lane, and this is 100% true, I've found it, the more you stay in your lane, the better you can serve people. Well, I found that staying in my lane means that I have to tell some people no. Have you read Tools of the Titans or Tribe of Mentors, Tim Ferriss's books?
They are literally on my list.
Okay.
And now I have to do it because I've said it publicly. So thank you.
Awesome. So for those of you who don't know, they're both interview books. So you can read, I read a chapter a day when I was doing them. They're like 10 to 15 pages. But the number one thing in there that you take away is, as people became more successful, in order to serve people better, they had to learn to say no. And that's a tough one for me. I probably have, if I looked at my Facebook right now, I probably have 50 or 60 messages in my inbox, easily. And I can't do all of that. If I do, it's going to take me, I don't want to be the guy who just sends a one-word reply. I want to actually read and give back. But for me to do that, that's like a 2 or 3 hour time hole. And I can't, so I just don't. If I don't know them, if I'm scrolling through and I don't know them, hey, I'm really sorry. And it's not because I'm rude. I know some people out there listening are probably like, dude, that guy's a jackass. But in reality, that's just like one small thing. I have people that reach out, this is something that probably no one else talks about, but I have people who reach out to me for money. And it's not that I don't want to help. It's that just giving you the money isn't going to be helpful. It might get you unstuck for this little moment in time, but you're probably going to go right back into that. If I can give you a program, maybe I do that sometimes. I'll give people a program or a ticket to Tony Robbins, something like that. So but they're learning to say no to things has been both a blessing and a curse, because it's hard for me to do. But I've been getting a lot better at it. The speaking tour, putting myself out of my comfort zone, and really focusing on that. And it's an interesting world out there, because it's different because it's your own event. I know what I'm doing. This is when I show up. This is the event. This is the space. This is what it costs. XXX. But doing other people's stuff, it's been an interesting thing. And I'm the most unlazy person in the world. I'm an action taker. I don't watch TV. I'm always doing stuff. But there have been a few moments where I'm I don't want to do this today. I want to go do something that I'm familiar with or comfortable with, or that's more in my wheelhouse of speaking to people instead of putting together, a press release. Editing is probably my least favorite thing in the world, but whatever. I have to do a lot of editing these days. I'm not very good at it. I just got my book back. So this is my second book that I've published. And I found I edited it. I had an editor edit it. I got it back. I'm flipping through. I found 3 mistakes right away. Just oh, well, whatever. I'm sure I'll hear about it. Yeah. Anyway, that's kind of what that's the personal growth curve at this point, is saying no. And we're always focusing on, at least what I'm focusing on, is who do I have to become to be the person that I want to be, and who is that person? It's clearly defined. One of the journaling things that I do every day. So I journal every day. The first thing, top of the page, is my vision. So it's the same 3 statements every day. It has been for the last 8 years.
Awesome. I'm right there with you, pal. Oh, for those listening, I'm holding up a journal. Anyways, please continue.
So first 3 statements are the same every day. The second piece is my top 5 things that I'm working on that will move the needle in today to the next 10 days, short term. And then the final thing, I used to just do stream of conscious journaling, but I started doing this. This was actually, I heard this in a Frank Kern talk that he gave in 2001 that I found on YouTube, of all places. but I pick a time frame, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months. And I say, where's my life in 30 days? And every day it's like, where's my life in 6 months? And I completely pick that number at random. It's either 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 3 months, 6 months. I don't go any further than that. Like I have the vision out there. That's what the top 3 statements are. But like the rest is like, okay. And it forces you to future pace yourself, put yourself there and like look back. Okay, what did I do over the last 30 days to be successful? That's been a really, really good. I've been doing that now for about a year, and it has definitely moved the needle a little bit. So
That's awesome. I'm curious. You mentioned how in order to become the person you want to be, you have to do the things that you're now doing. How did you figure out the person that you wanted to be, and who is that person?
sure. Man, there's so much that goes into that. So I looked at like who are our role models, right? Like I did a whole journal exercise on that. Like that was a Tony Robbins exercise. But like who are our role models and what do we actually really like about them? Like what makes them a role model? So like that'll give you some traits, but also like what do I enjoy doing? You know, that's a big one. Like there was I think it was an Abraham Lincoln quote. I can't remember I think it was Abraham Lincoln, but it was you have the pain of discipline or the pain of regret.
Ooh, that's
You have to pick one or the other. So, and I say that like in terms of, do I want to work out today? Well, in the moment, not really, right? The girl that let me stay in her utility closet, I started running at the time because I was like, I need to like do something to like, I need it. I needed to do something. And she was like, how do you run? Like, she's like, I run for the first block and I hate it. And I was like, oh, I hate it too. Nobody likes the first, I would say block, maybe like half mile, but then you get into it and you do like it. At least you think you like it. But nobody likes it right before they start. And you have to just do it, right? So you think about like that. So I smoked from the time I was 15 till the time I was 30. And it's like the perfect metaphor for this because it's like, even though I knew I wanted to quit, I didn't want to quit in that moment right before I would smoke a cigarette, right? Like I'd be like, no, I just want to like veg out. And like, it was my break for that like 10 minutes. I wasn't working. I wasn't talking to people, whatever, right? It's like a really good one. Or eating is the same thing. Like I love ice cream. I don't keep ice cream in the house because I'll eat all of it. If I want ice cream, I have to drive to the store and buy it. And I don't, maybe once or twice a month that happens, but it's rare. But it's like the pain. Do I want the pain of discipline or the pain of regret? And like, if you just get past that pain of discipline for a second, usually you get a little endorphin rush because you're better, whether that's exercising or eating right. Or, I mean, like if you don't eat ice cream all the time, then you look down and you're like, holy shit, I'm in shape. Like I don't have a beer belly. If you do that with your personal life, as far as like sales calls, this is an ongoing joke between me and my friends. If you're trying to sell something, if you're listening to this and you're like, I wish I could sell something, you know what? Don't be on a webinar. Don't be spending a whole bunch of money on Facebook ads. Pick up the phone and call somebody. Talk to them. But that's like the most painful thing in the world. Like, so we have this like ongoing joke in my friends group, because that's the answer. That's the solution to high ticket sales, is getting somebody on the phone. But so many people are like, the phone is poisonous. It's a scorpion. I don't want anything to do with it. Oh, they must have typed in their phone number wrong. These people are going to hate me. I mean, when I first started holding my own event, I remember I had to pick up the phone and call Treasure Island to book. And I was like, this is so weird. And I was like sitting there, like staring at my cell phone. And my friend, who was the same friend who I ended up in her utility room, she was like, what are you doing? Just pick up the phone and call them. And I'm like, but they could, like, she was like, you used to do events. You know how this whole conversation goes. And I was like, I know, but it's different on the side. She was like, stop. Like, just stop and pick it up. Like, I think she said a few other words in there, but I was like, you're right. This is totally stupid. I'm being a sissy. So I like, you should always do, like, there's the hard thing and there's the easy thing, right? This is a Tim Ferriss quote that he got from an Olympian bodybuilder. You can have easy choices equal a hard life, or hard choices equal an easy life. If something is bothering you to do it, chances are that you need to do it even more. You know, that conversation that you're sitting there thinking that you should be having with somebody you're putting off, you should pick up the phone and you should have it, or you should find that person, you should sit down. If you're in a relationship, this is like the hardest thing in the world for people, but like, be honest, sit down, put your ego aside, and have an honest conversation about what's going on. It will make things better. It sounds horrible right now because you're going to have that moment of pain, but on the other side of that moment, you are going to have a much better life. So this is like a huge long diatribe that I'll stop having, but that's like the ongoing thing in my life. I like ask myself that every day. I actually have, so I have a tattoo on my arm that says, if you can't, then you must. And it reminds me, like, every time that there's something that is slightly difficult that's bothering me, like, just man up and do it. Like, your life will be better. And like, those little things add up every single day. Before you know it, like, you're different, you're that person that you want to become. So it's like, I don't know, pick any superhero that you want to admire, pick anybody that you admire, and write those traits down and figure it out and be like, you know, would I be proud to be that person? And if you would, the more you think about that, the more you can become it. That's like the starting point. Write it out, figure it out. Like, where do I want to be? Who do I want to be? I mean, personally, I went and I looked at like all the mistakes that my parents made, my teachers made, people that I looked up to made. And I was like, not that mistakes are bad, but I'm like, okay, do I want that in my life? Can I learn from that? Can I avoid that mistake? Can I do something differently from that? Okay, who do I want to be? Who do I admire out there? And why do I admire them? What are those traits? How can I build those into my life? Success leaves clues, the other great quote.
So that seems like how you're going about getting to the person, but who actually is that person that you want to become?
Sure. So the three, like, I have a bunch of stuff on the wall behind me, right? So like quotes and stuff that I stick up to remind me. So authentic, based in integrity, treats people how they would want to be treated, like lives by the golden rule. Like, I believe in giving as much as I possibly can. And I believe it'll come back, but more importantly than it coming back to me, like, I believe that's how you make the biggest change in the world. So somebody who gives, somebody who enjoys their life, somebody who always has a positive word to say to somebody. I'm positive in my own life. That's an ongoing battle though too. I mean, we're our biggest critic always, and like, that's a tough one, but I've become better at it. But that's the hardest. Be kind to yourself. Hardworking, driven. Trying to think of other adjectives I would use to describe. Kind, successful. I think those are some good ones.
Yeah, those are definitely.
Is that a better
solid ones.
answer?
Yeah. I'm going to still keep asking, though, and keep probing because this is really fun. So that superhero that you were talking about, who's the superhero that you picked that you identify with?
I'm not a superhero guy. I watched like 2 of the Marvel movies. Honestly, I think Kick-Ass was my favorite of all of the superhero movies because it was the most entertaining. I didn't know what the movie was about. True story, I went on a date to see that movie, and I hadn't seen a trailer for it, nothing. I was just like, yeah, let's just go see this. And she was like, all right. And like, I don't know, like 20 minutes into it, we were both like, what is this? Like, this is the weirdest movie ever. But it's super fun movie. But that guy, I think that guy like embodies a lot of us, right? Like, he's not the badass at all. He's just some guy who wants to really do good, and like he does what he can when he can, and like things don't go well for him all the time. I mean, of course, we'd all say Tony Stark. I mean, who doesn't want to be Iron Man and like live on a beach in Malibu and be smart enough to just do whatever he wants? Like, oh, I want to create something. There it is. I don't know though. I don't think that really exists for. Maybe it does. I don't. Who would you be?
Batman.
Batman?
Look, I'm not saying that I am Batman. I'm just saying you've never seen me and Batman in the same place at the same time. That's all I'm going to say.
Fair enough. That would be a pretty fun one.
And the thing about Batman is he's a normal dude who just pushes it every day in every aspect of his life. Like he has to run with the superheroes with like super extraterrestrial powers and stuff, but he doesn't have any of those. I mean, yes, he is fabulously wealthy, but
That's not a superpower.
that's not a superpower, right? And like he uses that to run with the big dogs, even though he shouldn't be able to.
That's fair enough. I mean, I remember seeing like when they did like the reboot with Christian Bale. Um, I was like, he played a pretty good Batman. I was like, if you had billions of dollars, I just don't know that you'd be jumping off buildings. But he was, and it was pretty conceivable. So
Well, that's the thing. That's what makes it so awesome. He doesn't have to do any of that stuff, but
right,
it's that sense of like
that drive.
that inner fire. And he's just like, I'm not gonna give up ever. And like, especially when he goes, and I love the in the third movie when Bane totally kicks his ass, and he's in that like prison in the
Yeah,
sewer looking thing, and like he just trains back up, and he gets ripped, he like heals, and he just it's like the classic underdog story, but it's so just inspiring to me of like, man, he was at his lowest point, and he did anything that it took. He did what it took to
to get
get
there.
back. Yeah, to get there. Like that is so inspiring to me.
Yeah, for sure. All those movies are good. I think I like Batman better than I like Tony Stark. If I had to pick, I think
Yeah,
that would be a good one.
that's what I'm talking about. So I'm curious, when you are when we both are not here anymore, 5, 10,000 years from now, what is it that you want people to remember you for?
Man, um, if there was a legacy that I would leave behind, I think it would just be that I motivated people to be the best version of themselves. Um, if I can help somebody out there live their dream as opposed to being stuck in a rat race that they don't want to be stuck in. Some people love having a daily job. My sister loves her job. Like, she would never, ever in a million years want to be an entrepreneur. But for the people who want more and are trying to figure out how to get there, if I can help them do that, that's what I would want to be remembered for. I look at like Jim Rohn or Zig Ziglar, right? Zig Ziglar, if you study his life, like he changed so many people's lives from the stage, and anyone who says that they don't want to sell something, this is like a side note. I always point them at Zig Ziglar. I'm like, did you like Zig Ziglar? Oh my God, Zig Ziglar was awesome. You know, he was the number one stage salesperson for years. He sold tapes that were motivational, and he sold a goals program. But he changed a ton of people's lives. So I look at that, like, he's one of the people that I really, really admire in the space. More so even than like Tony Robbins or I think he's probably the one that I admire most in the space, because he didn't have like some big crazy message, and he spoke kind of weird, and he was kind of fugly. Like he didn't have like this big crazy persona, but he just knew how to change people's lives. And he was able to do it effectively in like a humble way. I love connecting with people. Anyone who has a huge ego annoys me. So I guess to answer your question, like I would hope people would say, like, he was able to help people live their dreams. He was able to motivate them to be the best version of themselves.
That's awesome. Well, I want to ask you one more question.
Sure.
And I'm very appreciative of the time that we've shared thus far. And I want to ask it from specifically my perspective today. And as of today, I'm 24 years old, just to give you a little bit of context. But what question should I be asking you that I just wouldn't think to ask?
Oh, man. Probably, I'm thinking about myself when I was your age. So when I was your age, I owned a cleaning business in college. I owned some real estate, but I was burning myself out doing something that I did not enjoy doing. I made a lot of money, which was good, but I didn't really get to enjoy that money. I mean, I did. I had some cars, I had some cool stuff, but I didn't really get to enjoy it because I was working a ton of hours doing something I wasn't passionate about. I think if you were to ask me a question, it would be, how can I reach more people doing what I love? Or how can I don't know you well enough to like prescribe fixes, but like, how can I enjoy my life to the fullest while living my passion? That's a like really roundabout question. I think something like that, though, because the two biggest things that have changed my life were, one, that whole like learning to stay in my lane, learning to say no type, like, this is what I'm going to do for right now, and having the discipline to do it. I'm trying to think of what question you should be asking. How to remain humble, because you're going to be a huge success. Like, the success path is there for you. How do you remain humble while at the same time like enjoying it and serving people? And I don't know if I have a question for humility other than personal connection with people. I don't know. Does that kind of answer it? Like, that's a good question.
There's no wrong answer to that question. I mean,
right.
That's the beauty of the question.
Right. Yeah. If you could interview any person, living or dead, who would you interview?
I would interview Augustus Caesar by far, because that dude, he took over as the first emperor of Rome because he built a relationship with his great uncle, Julius Caesar, who was the last leader of the Republic. And he built that relationship with his great uncle. And Julius obviously got murdered, A2 Brute, but he shifted his lineage to give it all to Augustus. And I don't know about you, but I don't give some random motherfucker on the side of the street Rome. I just, like it's Rome, right? So I want to know, how did he do that? And then he started building relationships with people in the Senate to where once he took over, he then siphoned off roughly $300 million, adjusted for today's inflation, from a war fund against a neighboring kingdom, decided, I'm not going to use that money for that. I'm going to put it in my pocket. He built enough of a relationship with the Senate to where they backed him on that. And then he went on in his lifetime to amass a personal wealth of $2.6 trillion, adjusted for today's inflation. $2.6 trillion. That is nuts. There may be one or two other people, arguably, but he is the wealthiest person in the history of humankind by far. At one point, he owned the country of Egypt. That's nuts. That's bonkers, dude. So if I could interview somebody, I would want to interview him, and I would want to ask him what his story was from his perspective, because that would be ridiculous to hear that.
What do you think he was after?
He was definitely trying to take over the world. The money was a byproduct of him trying to conquer everything.
Okay. That's an inch. Like, I had never heard those numbers before. Like, I'm running through it. Like, that's like a whole. I mean,
Yeah.
Napoleon, I studied Napoleon a lot, and Napoleon was the same. Like, I think they're just driven by this, like, I have to be in charge of everything, which is a pretty crazy place to be. I don't have that ambition, but it's interesting to study people like that for sure.
Well, it makes me think, and like it makes me think all the time, and I go back and forth with this. Like, what is the limit to our ambition? Like, how much can we really accomplish? What is at the limit of our potential? Because if he did it, that means he's a person, he's a dude, right? But he's a dude that freaking explored that to like the greatest level that any other person has explored it in that capacity. But it's like, then what are we capable of? What is possible? If somebody else did it, then we can do it. And if somebody else did that on their own without anybody else having done that before, then how much further can we push it?
Did you, like, man, you're right. I mean, I don't think there is a limit. I think that there's a certain amount of, if you will, luck that plays into, you have to be in the right place at the right time and have like lightning strike. But if this is what I tell anyone who says like, oh, I could never do that, you got lucky. If you're preparing yourself, sooner or later, lightning will strike in some fashion. And you might not get to do what, like, very few people get to do exactly what they dream. But you can do a version of it and you can get there in some fashion. Especially if you keep working at it and believing in yourself. Like, that's the story that we tell ourselves in our own head is the story that will eventually come true. Whether you say that you're, whatever you tell yourself, whether you can do it or you can't do it, you're probably right. I believe that's a couple of different people have been credited with that quote. I believe it was Ford. I mean, you look at Andrew Carnegie, similar, right? Like, had this huge ambition to go out and take over everything, and he did, and then he ended up giving it all away, trying to search for meaning, and to better the world. It is interesting. I mean, I don't think there's a limit on ambition. I think you can have it as much, and I think you can achieve. I mean, Elon Musk's ambition, like, he's the modern day dude. I'm going to go to Mars. He probably said that when he was in 8th or 9th grade, and his teacher was like, sure you are, little Elon. And he's like, now he's like, uh-huh, that's right. I like, did you see the video where he sent his car off into space with the GoPros on it?
No,
He like
but that's
literally
awesome.
sent, you can find it on YouTube. It's like it's 8 hours long or something. It's literally, he sent his car up into outer space with 4 GoPros on it, and then he was like, it's going to Mars. And he just sent it to Mars. And like it kept sending signal till it got too far and couldn't send signal anymore. And you just watch like this car just spinning through space headed towards Mars. And he's like, we're going to be in Mars by 2025. Even if he's wrong, which some people have been like, he's going to be late. Even if it's 2030, 10 years from now, we're going to be on Mars. And he's like, yep, I'm doing it. And if there's anyone that I would bet on, it would probably be him. I mean, it's him and Amazon racing for it. So I think, going back to your answer for ambition, I think ambition is, you can take it as far as you want. And anyone who says that ambition is bad, so here's the difference between ambition and greed. And this is from Jim Rohn. Greed is that you do things for your own personal gain. Ambition is, you believe, right or wrong, you believe that you are doing it for other people. So unfortunately, Adolf Hitler believed that he was doing things right, at least for him in Germany. Some people get really mad when I say stuff like that. Like, I'm not saying he was right, not at all. I think he was definitely wrong, but
he believed he was.
He believed he was right. Napoleon believed he was right. The South believed they were right. Like, people believe that they're right, and that can cause ambition. So ambition can be misguided, but ambition at its core, what I'm trying to point out with this is, ambition at its core is that you're doing things not for yourself. You're not being a greedy narcissist. You're doing it because you believe that it helps other people, that it will help the world, help somebody other than just you. Greed is when you're doing it just for yourself. There are definitely greedy people out there, but I don't believe that that is you or me. I don't believe it was Caesar. I don't believe that it was Andrew Carnegie. I don't believe it's Elon Musk. I believe that we're just all driven because we want the recognition for it, but we also just want to help.
Absolutely. Well, Steve, again, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I'm very grateful for this time we've been able to share, and it's such an honor to get to chat with you today. And yeah, thank you very much.
No problem. It's been my pleasure. This has been a lot of fun, Ben.
Yeah, and to everybody watching and listening, I want to say thank y'all very, very much. Y'all rock. Hopefully you already know that, but if you don't, well, you do. So thank y'all. Thank you, Steve, and I will see everybody on the next episode.